You could buy 3 of these for the same price as 1 of these, but is the YT Izzo 3 times better than the Calibre Bossnut?
Unfortunately, Tom, it's not quite as simple as that. Yes, the Calibre Bossnut has incredible geometry, but a couple of its components put a glass ceiling on performance. The YT Izzo, on the other hand, really good spec list. Look at that thing. It's hot, but get it down the trail and the conservative figures, sometimes they make it a bit trickier to ride.
So in true Wrecked and Rated fashion, let's find out where's the best place for you to splash your cash.
Woo!
Okay then Al, so we're going to talk about the frame, the kit, the geometry, and of course what the bikes are like to ride to help you make a good buying decision. So let's kick off first with the Bossnut. Al, can you tell us a little bit about the frame and the geometry?
It's an alloy frame. Actually, it looks really sleek. It's got this lovely line from the head tube to the rear axle. I think it looks like a great bike. But the devil is in the details. And it's pretty clear that Calibre has built this to a price. For example, externally routed cables. It's way cheaper to do that. Now mechanics, they'll probably rejoice at this. People who are more interested in aesthetics, not so sure.
Yeah.
There's no chain slap protection, which, you know, okay, it's not a big deal, but when you're riding the bike's a bit noisier. No UDH.
Okay.
So this is a biggie. It means that you're going to have to find a bespoke hanger that Calibre has designed for this bike if it gets broken.
Yep.
Whereas the UDH is more widely available. And then finally, a few other things like the bosses for the bottles, they extrude from the tubes rather than sit inside them. And it's just these little details that make the Bossnut pretty obvious that it's, you know, been built to a price.
Okay, those bosses under the top tube, you're not going to be able to fit a bottle in there, so are they for tools or for bags or what they're there for?
Yeah, absolutely, they are accessory mounts. And down here is where you fit your bottle. And I've actually got a 750ml bottle in there with no issues.
Okay, well let's look at the Izzo then. I mean, obviously full carbon frame, looks pretty nice, some sleek lines in there. I'm spotting internal cable routing, that's nice to see. There's some nice cable guides down here. Fidlock mount, is that from standard?
Oh, it is.
Okay, and look, there's a UDH down there, so you can run transmission, direct mount derailleurs on there. And a nice little box axle at the back. It looks like quite a sleek little bike.
Absolutely, it is a great package. And okay, YT's still got to make money, so clearly, you know, it's going to be built to a price, but it is far from being a budget bike. That frame is beautiful. And also you missed that chain slap protection, which keeps things beautifully hushed.
All right, Al, let's talk geometry. So the Izzo comes in 5 sizes. This size large has got a 66-degree head angle, 77-degree seat angle, and a 472mm reach in that large. So kind of bang on trail numbers. Also got a flip chip, half a degree steeper on those both angles, 5mm in the bottom bracket as well. Kind of bang on for a trail bike in 2025.
But don't ever be convinced by a brand that tell you geometry costs money. The Bossnut is living proof that geometry is free, because this thing's figures are banging. A 64.5 degree head angle.
Wow.
A 78.5 degree seat tube angle, and reach figures that span 420 up to 500mm on the 5 size range.
Okay.
Incredible for the price. Right then, pal, before we get on to the riding, let's just chat about specs, because with these 2 price differences, there's actually a lot to talk about.
Yeah, so the Izzo is what, 4499, so kind of expensive mid-price sort of bike, but it comes with quite a banging looking spec. Obviously you can see the Ohlins suspension, that is a premium brand, but it doesn't stop there, because we've got a full SLX group set with a Shimano XT shifter.
Oh, beautiful.
The XT shifter is a definite step up in performance over the SLX. We've also got SLX brakes, 4-pot ones, so plenty of power there. DT Swiss Alloy XM 1700 wheels, a nice wheel set, and decent Maxxis tyres, triple compound with an EXO Plus casing at the back.
But don't forget about that Renthal cockpit.
Solid.
The Bossnut's an interesting one. This bike costs £1,700 or £1,399 with the £5 Go Outdoors card. No brainer, right?
Yeah.
So, what's it got? A RockShox Recon fork, a deluxe rear shock, Shimano's 10-speed Qs drivetrain, Maxxis tyres, but, and here's a big but, they're only the dual compound EXO casing version. So, you know, pretty budget. And then elsewhere, it's kind of own brand kit.
Doesn't sound terrible for the money.
For the money, it's pretty good. But as we'll find out in a minute, on the trail, there are definitely some performance compromises.
Well, sounds like we need to get onto the riding impressions.
Woohoo!
So glad I'm wearing a thermal gilet right now. All right, any good ride starts with a climb. So let's talk about how these bikes get up a hill.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Izzo, it's got a super sporty climbing position, which is brilliant when you want to bury yourself. You can hunker down, you can give it 100% effort, and that bike just flies up the hills. It's got a 14.19 kilogram weight, which for a size large, with that Exo Plus rear tyre Tom mentioned earlier, that's pretty bloody good, to be honest with you. There is one thing though. The seat tube angle, 77 degrees on paper. In reality, measured at my preferred seat height, 74.5. So it's quite a bit slacker than they claim. The chainstays are also quite short. The short chainstays means that when you're climbing, you're going to have to do more unconscious weight shifts. Now, while these might not be an issue generally, say when the terrain's super technical and you want to keep the front wheel down and the back one from wheel spinning at the same time, because of that short chainstay, because you're closer to the back wheel, you're going to have to be working a little harder. And when you're just cruising about, pedaling efficiency, it's maybe not perfect.
So I've previously ridden the more XC focused Izzo Uncaged, which is much more of a lightweight build, and it comes with an on-bar lockout. Did you ever faff around with the lockouts on the Ohlins shock and fork?
We'll go a bit deeper in a minute on the suspension. Short answer is you don't need it on the Izzo.
Okay, so this sounds like quite a sporty bike. How about the Bossnut?
Yeah, Bossnut's got a different character. Not only because of the 16.71 kilogram weight, which to be fair is quite chunky, but it's also the geometry. It's got a steeper seat tube angle. Only 1 degree on paper. In reality, it's 2 degrees steeper when measured at my preferred riding height hook. And the chainstays are way longer. So not only do you sit directly above the cranks when you're pedaling for better efficiency, you're not having to constantly shift your weight around. It's easier to ride, but it's way more sedate. So you're going to be getting to the tops of those trails slower than on the Izzo.
It feels like you're sat more centrally, so it's probably better on a steeper climb, but that rear tyre is a faster rolling one than the Minion I've got on the back of this.
Yeah, faster rolling tyres and the dual compound bit of them,
Yeah.
obviously going to make them even faster again. That is until the terrain gets wet, slippy, rooty, rocky. Anything with a bit of grease, and actually you're probably going to be slower on this again because you're going to be skidding and wobbling around on all those roots and rocks. I certainly was on the test laps.
Okay. It's quite nice to see a drop post on a bike at this price. There's a fair bit of drop, what, a 150mm travel on there? It's pretty
170.
good. 170. The other interesting thing is that Shimano Q's group set. So Shimano Q's is like the budget orientated family of group sets from Shimano, which covers gravel and mountain bike.
Covers the whole shebang, I think, yeah.
You say it's 10 speed. What is the shifting like under power when you're going up a hill?
Actually, the Q system, it shifts brilliantly. You probably couldn't tell the difference between this and a series version,
Okay.
the or SLX, more specifically. There is one little thing though. The largest sprocket is 48T.
Okay.
So on this one, which is SLX, it's 51T. So you're losing out on 3 teeth. With the same 32 tooth chainring at the front, it makes this bike a little bit harder to pedal to the top of those hills again.
Yeah.
So combine it with the weight, with the sketchy tyres, and actually you're going to have to dig yourself a little bit deeper and pedal harder on the Bossnut to reach the tops of those downhills.
Now for the fun bit. Let's talk about descending. The Izzo has got some amazing kit and definitely some trail-friendly geometry, whereas the Bossnut, well, the shape of it seems to suit steeper descending better than the Izzo, but the kit on it isn't quite as good. So, Al, what are they like down a hill?
You're totally right, mate. These bikes have got completely different personalities on the downhills. The Bossnut, now starting with the fork, this thing feels brilliant when you're just going slowly. It's super fluttery, really absorbent. Up the pace, up the speed at which you hit those bumps. And actually, there's a pretty big issue here. It's got severe compression spike, high-speed compression spike. So what that means is that the fork can't compress quick enough in order to absorb the bump that you're hitting. This reverberates back up through the handlebars and means that you actually have to do quite a bit of planning in order to avoid those big hits. On top of that compression spike, though, there's another issue. And this is oscillation when you're moving your weight from the front to the back of the bike.
Okay.
So there's a bit of an issue with the low speed damping here. You get over the front of the bike, instead of the fork resisting your weight from moving, it actually dips in and out of its travel. And this can lead to a bit of a pogo, bouncy kind of feel as you're going down the trail. And this all works against the Bossnut's general shape. It kind of undoes the goodness of that geometry.
Okay. It is a basic fork on a budget bike, and not to sort of blow your trumpet, but you are really good at bikes. Is someone who's coming into the sport really going to have a problem with that?
I think if you're a beginner just riding your green trail or your double track, no issue whatsoever. I think when you start to up the technicality slightly, your skills aren't good enough to compensate for the suspension that maybe doesn't work as good as it could do. And that's where the issue lies.
Okay.
That's a fair point. Okay.
Okay, but what about the Ohlins on the YT? Ohlins are known for some pretty fancy suspension tech. How good is it?
Yeah, it's absolutely no different. That M3 version of that new RXF 36, amazing. Loads of support, easy to tune, super supple. That thing outshines the bike entirely.
Okay, let's talk about the rest of the bike. What about in the middle? You've got the, was it a TTX shock in there?
Yeah, that's the TTX shock. Now, this one is a little bit interesting because the YT's got a horse link suspension design, which is generally considered to be fairly rounded, like easy to tune, pretty adaptable, generally quite supple. With that Ohlins shock, it's quite choked.
Okay.
Now, YT seems to have gone for quite a sporty damper tune on that shock. And actually, what that means is that when you're riding down the trail, the bumps aren't absorbed as well as they could be. It's got quite a dull, thuddy ride rather than a super plush and smooth one.
Okay.
And I think that definitely limits the potential of the Izzo in its stock form.
On really rough stuff, but what about smoother stuff? You say it's got a sporty sort of tune, that means it's a bit more active maybe, a bit of pop in there?
Plenty of pop, and you can actually boost the hell out of that bike,
Okay.
and it feels brilliant, it feels awesome. And the faster you ride, the better it becomes. So because that damping is quite closed, you start hitting it harder, it uses more travel, it feels really good.
Okay. Further back in the Bossnut then, what is that Deluxe like? Because it's a good shock.
Yeah, it's a good shock. Basic, but good. The Bossnut's got a single pivot suspension design, which has, slightly less tunability than the Horse Link. This shock, it's fine. It's not going to blow you away. It could also maybe do with a retune to be slightly lighter damped, but actually of the two, I think that the rear end on the Bossnut performs better overall.
Okay, so that's the suspension dealt with on both bikes. Let's talk about some of the finishing kit. And of course, as we've talked about many times in the past, tyres are really important. Got a pair of Minion DHFs on this one, EXO on the front, EXO Plus on the rear, triple compounds. And this one we've got a Forecaster on the back and a Minion DHF on the front. So let us know your thoughts.
Yeah, these faster rolling. Obviously, dual compound, harder, they're gonna roll faster. On the Izzo, way more grip and more damped feeling.
Okay.
Now, this is brilliant for when you're kind of riding over super rocky, rooty terrain that's a bit slippery. You can stick a line, you can hold your line better on the Izzo compared to these less grippy. And let's face it, that's what they are.
Yeah.
They are less grippy tyres.
Okay. Obviously a little bit spendier though, which contributes to the fact that you can get 3 of them for the same price as one of these.
Yep. It's good having team leader out in front. Once again, the Bossnut just totally proves that you don't need to pay for good figures. Now, that slack head tube angle, long chain stays, generally the bike's got a super calm, lethargic almost feel to it, which is brilliant for experienced riders looking to tackle gnarly terrain, but also inexperienced ones who want a helping hand. The bike insulates the trail from the rider better, basically. The Izzo, on the other hand, it's much sportier. It's way quicker, way more responsive. And on the right terrain, in the right hands, it feels amazing. In fact, you don't have to go at breakneck speed to give you that sort of same rush. And I think that, that makes the Izzo a really compelling, nippy bike to ride on the right terrain.
I've ridden the Izzo a few times actually, and it's a really involving ride. Right place, right time. It's a hell of a lot of fun, but it can get a little bit out of its place when you sort of start going down something super steep, because it has got that sort of classic trail geometry rather than something a little bit more extreme. Let's sum up then, quite a bit of a price difference here.
Yeah, totally. The Bossnut, that 1,700 asking price or 1,400 with the card, it makes it such a compelling bike. And with the money you save over the asking price of this one, you could upgrade all the bits that maybe you don't like or don't perform as well over time with second-hand upgrades.
But look at this, you know, there's nothing on there that you need to upgrade or change. Out of the box, this bike is a high performer, so you don't really need to do any chopping or changing. But Al, is there anything else we need to know about these bikes? Is there anything weird going on?
Yeah, the only thing that's a little strange, and it definitely plays into the YT's favour, is the warranty. YT's got a 2-year warranty on the frame, plus a 1-year voluntary guarantee, like a crash replacement type thing.
Okay.
The Bossnut, however, has only got a 1-year warranty, and in that warranty, the small print exempts it from competition, wheelies and other general stunts, which is a little strange.
Okay, yeah, that is a bit odd, especially if you're getting into the sport and you want to practice your skills. Maybe you are going to want to try and pop a wheelie.
Yeah.
I've got 25 years of mountain biking without being able to though, so maybe not. Okay, well, there remains one thing to ask. Which is it that you're putting your hand in your pocket for, and which are you spending your money on?
I think for me, the most compelling bike is the Izzo. And with 700 quid off on the day that we're filming it, it's an even better deal.
Now, if you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave us a comment, ask any questions, and give it a like. And if you want to see another bike review, Al recently reviewed the Santa Cruz Valor.